everybody. How are you today? Welcome back to In My Garage. Working on the big green today. Specifically the fuel injection. Remember we put an ACES system on it and got it running eventually. Wasn't the greatest, but it's going. And the VE table, volumetric efficiency, is getting dialed in. So it's running much better. Still cold starts horribly. But I'm learning, I'm working on that. But since we got the fuel table dialed in, I thought, let's do timing. Because the ACES Killshot will control timing. Now, I didn't buy all the ACES stuff. There's lots of information on the web about that. Most people don't like it. They have a whole lot of trouble setting up the distributor and getting the timing right, and eventually they take it off. So I don't want that to happen, and I'm not thrilled with the ACES tech people or their systems, or their software really. The hardware's probably okay, I don't know. But anyway, I went out and bought an all-star distributor for this purpose. It's pretty good, it's right here. It's very solid, it's billet aluminum. There's no play in the shaft, up or down. The cap fits nice and tight instead of wobbling around like the Petronix on it. And the reason I went with a new distributor is the Petronix has an ignition amplifier in it. And the Killshot is supposed to have its own ignition amplifier, so I didn't want the two fighting over things and messing up the whole system. So this is just a magnetic pickup distributor. That's all it does. It has an advanced mechanism in it, but we'll lock that out for use with the timing control. So that's not really an issue. All right, now before you go stabbing the distributor in or taking anything apart on the engine, you need to know what your timing curve is, so you know what you're going to put down in the computer in the timing table to get started with. And the easiest way I found to do it is just grab a timing light. Doesn't matter if it's an old school one, doesn't matter if it's got a dial on the back or digital, it works best. I mean, this makes it easy. You can see what it says right on the back of the gauge. But build yourself a little graph. You got some graph paper, get it out, put some numbers on it. What I like to do is advance. Let me write this down. Okay, what I like to do is make a graph. This is the advance numbers. This is my RPM, starting with an idle. Let me write RPM down here. My writing's kind of horrible, but this is RPM. And I start my RPM at idle, and then I go by 2,000 or 250 all the way up to 4 grand. Now most advance is all done before 4 grand, so that's all the further we need to go. And my advance numbers start down here. 0 would be the bottom, and then 10 all the way up to 50. Now nobody's going to have 50 degrees advance, I hope, but that's a possibility. So get your buddy in the car, fire it up, take a look at what your timing is at idle. I happen to know that mine at idle is 14 degrees, so I put a big old dot right there on 14 degrees. And then have him rev it up to 1,000 and take a look at what it is there. And I do know that mine doesn't move much because I've got a really set stiff of springs in there. It moves about 1 degree, so it's 15 degrees there. And then what is it at 1250? What is it at 15? What is it at 1750? And so on, all the way up. And you'll find that your curve probably comes up in a nice straight line, or maybe a little bit of a curve in it, or even the other way, depending on what weights are in your distributor. So get that all written down, and that's where you're going to start on your timing table, which we'll show you in the Killshot software. So this is the first thing. Don't take your truck apart, or your car or your engine or whatever. Don't pull the distributor out. Don't do anything till you've done this first. Got it? All right. So we'll get this done. I don't have anybody here right now to get on the throttle, but I do know what my timing curve is. I have it written down, so we'll do with that. But once we're done with that, then we go to our distributor. And you're gonna need to lock out your distributor. So what is that? That is making sure that this part does not, the mechanical advanced system does not work inside your distributor. So let's see if this is a little too big of a screwdriver maybe. Let's give it a shot, and I'll show you the mechanical advance in here, or what should be in here. This one's actually already locked out. I did that before I decided to make a video on it. But that's all right. It's very easy to demonstrate. Now, as you can see, I've already taken the weights and the springs off that control the advance mechanisms. And I'll see if I can find those, and I'll stick them back on there just for you. Here we go now. I put the weights on here, and when this distributor is spinning, the centrifugal force of it spinning causes these weights to swing out. And they're held in place by the spring, but the weight can overcome the spring and swing out. And that pushes on the center of the shaft, advancing the ignition. And we don't want that when we're using the electronics to control it. So the springs come off. There's one on each side. The weights come off. And I would say you don't need these anymore, but keep them. You may want to go back to manual timing. With the ACES, who knows, you know, right? But could be with any system. So now I have no weights, nothing to move this centerpiece, but I want to make sure the centerpiece stays put and doesn't just flop around. So that's going to involve actually taking the shaft out of the distributor, turning it 180 degrees, and stuffing it back in. Well, how do you get this shaft out? You get it out by pulling this gear off, and it has a roll pin right there. Can you see that? Holds it in place. You got to get the roll pin out. Make it really easy for you to see. There you go. It has a roll pin right in that hole. So you pound that roll pin out with a little punch, the gear will come off. You may have to pull it off, but usually they just come off. And on this particular distributor, it also has this shaft right here with a roll pin in it that needs to be pushed out. Some of them won't have this. Some of them will be held in place by the gear. So that's pretty easy. You can take this shaft out. On this particular distributor, one of the cool things about it is you actually don't need to take the gear off. In most distributors, the gear has to come off. But see this distance here? If I simply take the roll pin out of this one, this will slide down here, allowing me to push the shaft forward, which lifts this piece, and then I just spin it 180 degrees and I drop it back in. There's a little bolt underneath it. Can we see that? Where is it? There we go. Can you see that bolt down there? It's right there, right under here. That nut gets tightened up and it holds this plate in place. Get that turned off. Okay, there we go. All right, it's cold out here. My nose is starting to run. So that's all we have to do to lock this in place. Once that's dropped in, we put the shaft back where it belongs, push the roll pin back in with a little hammer and a punch, and we're all done. It's pretty easy. Now, like I said, I already did this one, but if you guys would like to see it done, when I have my Patronics out, I will show you how to do it on that one. But you got to leave it in the comments if you want to see me do it to one. All right? Gotcha. All right, so this is ready to go. I'm gonna put the cap back on it, or the rotor, I guess you would call it. Oh, and these are marked too. You can't just willy-nilly a distributor cap on, or a rotor. It has, on the bottom of it, one side has a square next to the screw, one side has a round post, which corresponds to the distributor cap. So when you're putting it on, make sure to put the square peg in the square hole. Kind of like, just like when you were a kid. And it should drop right down in, and then you can hit the screws. There we go. Let's put the cap on. The cap also has a notch that lines up. And on this particular model, it has two little pegs on this side, right there where my finger is, and nothing on this side. And that aligns with the spaces on the cap. So once you take a look at it and see where that belongs, the cap drops down. I really like caps that have screws that hold them in place more than any other type, simply because they don't wobble or move or shift or anything. It just holds it solidly in place. Like that. Nothing moves, wobbles, or anything. I really like that. Most distributors, that you can actually move them enough to change your timing by a degree or two, and that's no good. So this is what we're going to stick in there. I'm going to fill out my graphs so you guys can see it, and then we'll pull out the Patronics. We'll stuff this one in. Got a lot of rewiring. Yay! No, not so much. Hate wiring. But we got a lot of rewiring to do. A lot of wires pull through the firewall. Gonna have to extend some, I think. But we'll get it done, and you'll get to see it. Let's get started. Boy, I want to say that I've been having a great time, but no, that's not the truth. I don't enjoy wiring. I try to be meticulous about it, and make it clean, but I always do something stupid and have to redo it. So anyway, we've got it looking pretty good, I think. Well, I was going to show you with this light, but it is just decided it's all done for the day. All right, let's try a new one. All right, here we got the wiring on this side, and it's still got just about the same amount of wires over here. The main harness that goes to Killshot, we got a little more hanging out back there. Not too much, that's all getting hidden by the air cleaner. The real changes are over here and down here. There we go. Now what we got is we got the new coil mounted, and this wire was too short. It wouldn't reach, so that had to be extended. This is the VR wire from the Killshot's harness. It was also too short and had to be extended. And there you can see them going into the firewall over there in that big old cluster of wires. So the loose wires that were here for the original coil and distributor are all gone. They're back inside the cap. And so we do have some work that still needs to be done in there. Let's go take a look at what's up over there. This right here is some of those loose wires that we saw up front. In fact, this whole harness here, the only thing I'm using out of it is one brown wire, and that's sending a tack signal to my original dash tack. So we got to have that. So this wiring has got to be shoved up here and wired up there. So that's just a bunch of zip tie-in. This is the cord for our handheld. But we're getting closer. As soon as I get that all taken care of and tied up, we would be ready to start, except I don't have spark plug wires. Actually, I got the wires, but I don't have the boots to fit this new cap. So I'll get that done, and then we'll be able to fire her up and show you this timing table. Actually, we should be able to do that beforehand just on the laptop. So if I don't get the boots in time, I'll show you that. All right, stick around. We'll get things done. Well, we're in the cab of the truck. We have the ignition on. We're looking at the manual, and we're looking at our Killshot handheld. Now the manual talks about static timing in a couple of places, and I don't know if they're if it understands what I think static timing is, hey, now I'm bright. Now I'm dark. Anyway, okay, we're in the cab of the truck, and we're looking at the Killshot manual, and we're looking at the handheld. And the manual references static timing, which to me is putting your distributor in the motor, setting the motor at the advance you want, like 14 degrees, 15 degrees, wherever, turning the ignition on and rotating the distributor till you get that spark on the #1 spark plug that you've pulled out of them, and you set it on a ground or spark plug wire, and that's static timing. The motor is not running, which would be dynamic timing. So that's the way I do static timing. I set my vibration dampener, I set it on 14, whatever I want my initial timing to be, and then I make sure the rotor's pointed at #1 terminal, and you can just back it up a little bit and then pull forward on it, and it will spark out of that spark plug wire on the #1 when it's right at where you have it on the dampener, and then you tighten it down anyway, and that's done. Static timing is done. This is different, what they're saying. And if we read along here, it tells you to switch ignition key on, which powers up the handheld. Go to turning spark basic static timing. The screen allows you to set the distributor exactly where the Killshot ECU needs it to be positioned to operate the timing. So let's do that. Let's make sure you can see what you're seeing, or what I'm seeing. So we're coming over here. We're going to go to tuning, spark, basic, and this is your basic screen. Now it says the crank ignition is 15, idle is 15, cruise is 37, wide open throttle is 32, static timing is 15 degrees. And then it has a timing offset, which you're not going to mess with, the max and a minimum, coil output dwell, and your maximum engine RPM. So it's static. It says on the handheld the static timing is 15 degrees. Well, that is where we set our timing on the harmonic balancer on the front of the crank. We put that to 15 degrees at the pointer, and we stuck our distributor in so that the reluctor wheel and distributor lines up with the magnetic pickup perfectly, or as perfect as a human can get it. And so that should be 15 degrees. So that's kind of makes sense there. So if we continue reading, it's in the manual, it tells us that allows us to set the distributor exactly where the Killshot needs to be. Okay, maybe we've done that. And it says start the engine, set the static timing to 15 degrees before top dead center, then go to the handheld. Okay, now I'm confused. I started the motor, so I'm not setting a static timing. Static timing is everything sitting still. Static, not dynamic, not moving, not turning, not rotating. So that's going to be a little difficult. And then I go to the handheld. Well, I'm already at the handheld. But let's do that. Let's go back to the handheld, because now we should be in the advanced setting. So this is the advanced here. So we're going to go to advanced setting, and then it says to lock our timing. So that's this one right here. Lock it. Save it. Now it's locked. So we've done what they call step 2. Start the engine, then set the static time at 15 degrees before top dead center, which we already did. Then go to the handheld, tuning, spark, advanced, lock ignition timing. Click enter to lock. Now save. Now the ignition timing is locked at 15 degrees before top dead center. Using a timing light, rotate the distributor until you see 15 degrees. Excuse me, this says before top dead center, yes. Rotate the distributor until you see 15 degrees before top dead center on the balancer. Tighten down the clamp. If you did your timing, your static timing correctly, it should already be at 15 degrees. But that's okay. Do that. That's what you need to do. Then we come back to our handheld, which should be still on lock, and we need to unlock it. Save it. I hope you could see that. I didn't move you very close. And once it says unlock, we can return to the main menu. And now it should be controlling the timing. But there's one other thing you got to be aware of. If you still have it set on simple in your software, the timing is going to be controlled by the way you saw it on the basic. Let's go back there and I'll show you what I mean. We can go back in, tuning, spark, basic. Now this is what your timing is. Nothing else. When you hit the throttle, when you're idling, it's at 15, and when you come off cruise, or when you come off of idle, it'll jump right to 37 degrees. And that's not good. It should ramp up nice and neatly. Now when I say this, that's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to vary a little bit because the kill shot will move your timing around to get the idle right. But everything else should be right where it's at. So as soon as you come off of idle, your cruise RPM, or your cruise timing, is going to be 37. Too much. My maximum timing on this engine isn't even 37. I mean, when the vacuum advance pulls, yeah, it can go above that. But normally my mechanical advance stops at 34. So you need to build a table on your computer in the software and set your timing from simple to table. So let's go see how to do that. All right, here we are at the Killshot's software. I just started it up and select Killshot. This is the first page you come to. And we're going to be working in tuning, which is up here at the top. Click on tuning. And let's see what, I don't remember what tune this is. Nowhere on the Killshot does it say which tune you opened if you have multiple tunes, but that's all right. We're going to go down to the timing, or the spark plug right here. So click on that. And then we're going to see that this is our simple timing, or would be if there was any numbers populated in here. It obviously didn't load any tune, so let's load a tune in here. Let's pick that one. All right, now we have a basic tune, and this is your initial timing, or your simple timing, that the Killshot uses. 15 degrees of cranking, 15 degrees at idle. As soon as you leave idle, it jumps immediately to 37, and if you go wide on the throttle, it jumps immediately to 32. And that's not a good timing setup to have. You don't want your initial, as soon as you go off idle, to go initially to 37. Not unless you're racing or something. But we're going to need to go into configuration item, because just like we did on the handheld, we're going to change our ignition timing base type. And we're going to change from simple, right here, click on that, to 2D table. That's where we're going to build our timing table. So we can close up these other ones now and go down to 2D table. And we're going to go to maximum brake time, torque, maximum brake torque, or motor brake torque, or whatever it stands for. We're looking for the maximum torque we can produce using timing. And here we have it, a basic timing table, which came up under that tune I had. And you may have just zeros here on your Killshot software, but it doesn't matter, because we're going to look at our timing graph that we built when the before we took our old distributor out, we used our timing light and mapped out what ignition timing we had before we started. And that gives us a great baseline for what we want in this timing table. And ours started at 14 degrees at idle. So I am just going to highlight this whole line. And then there's multiple ways to do this. You can right click to bring this up. And I'm going to say fill the same values. And I'm going to tell it those values I want. I can do 14, 15. Let's just go with 15 to make it easy. Boom, now it's all 15 degrees. And what did I have at 1,000 when I looked at my graph? It was still at 15 because I have a pretty slow timing setup on there. So I'm going to do the same thing at 1,000. I'm going to set it at 15 and hit OK. Oops, I missed one. So I'm just doing one. So I'm going to double click on that one and put 15 in there. All right. Now, what did I have on my graph at 1500? I had 18 degrees. So once again, highlight the whole thing, fill the same value, 18 degrees. Now, as I go through this, you might notice on the ones that are on here, the degrees actually drop when it comes up here to the higher load areas. And we'll go ahead and do that. But it's not necessary for us to do it right this moment while we're filling out the table. We're just going to do the basics, and then I'll take you through anything else that we may have to do. And I'm just going to move on to 2000, and I had 24 degrees there. So we'll just fill this in. And this is a very slow timing, and it works for my motor, not necessarily for yours. This timing table, don't use it to set up yours. Do your own homework and find out what your engine had in it to start with. Use that, not what I have here. But this works for me. So what are we at here? We're at 3,000. And at 3,000, I was at 3,400 RPM, or 34. And that was my max. This was my max mechanical advance. Now, obviously, when the vacuum advance pulled, it went higher than that. But this was my max. So I'm going to light up all of these and fill them with the same value. There we go. Now, my screen has a very basic timing table, a very simple one, and we could run with this if we wanted to. It's not overly aggressive, not going to hurt anything, but I am going to reduce the values a little bit up here by smoothing it or filling in between these. I want to start reducing my timing just a little bit up in this area. So I'm going to bring this down to like 14 degrees here. Probably 14 degrees here. Let's bring this down to 16. Put this one at about 22. This one we're going to drop down to 28. And I'll show you why I'm doing this here in a minute. 32, 32, and so forth. We'll just give all of these 32. Now I can go ahead and smooth the individual columns a little bit, and it'll just drop the timing. Highlight them, right click. It fills selected values, and it just reduces the one in between by 1 or by half or whatever it is. So you can just do that. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I could just click on it and actually put in the value manually if I wanted to. Oops. Lots of different ways to fill this table out. And that is one thing nice about it. Is there is a lot of ways to enter things. Now that just slowly reduced my timing by 2 degrees up here at the top end. And really at the end here, I'm kind of going to take out some timing all the way across. I don't want it to go above 6 grand really. And I'll pull out some timing right up here. We'll just drop all that down to 32. That way, if I accidentally do go by my max RPM, it's not going to be pulling as hard. Hopefully it doesn't hurt anything. But this timing table is what I can start with. It's set up nice. It matches my dark timing plot here. I'm going to eventually want my timing to come in a little faster, which is just a matter of incrementally moving all this stuff up. And you can do that. You could highlight the whole table and use your up arrows just to move everything up like this. I'll just show it to you here. All right, I've highlighted my entire table and I'm going to use an up arrow, and you just watch all the numbers jump up just slightly. And you could do this to just slowly tune in that advance that you want. Bring it back down. It's pretty close to where it was. It always loses a tenth. I'm not sure why, but that's still close enough. So I would save this table and the tune. I would label it my tune, and then I go download it or upload it. These arrows are backwards. I don't know why the Killshot did that, but if I'm putting something from the PCU into the ECU, I'm uploading it to the ECU, not downloading it. And then when I'm bringing it from the ECU into my computer, I'm downloading it from the ECU to the PC, not the other way around. So I would reverse the arrows, but that's just me. I'm picky. I wanted to also mention that these numbers here usually don't reduce in this area. So I did drop them down just to be on the safe side, but probably not necessary to lower them here. And when you're using a vacuum advance and you're in a low load area of your table and you're cruising, it's all right to move, or these values would be higher with the vacuum advance. So if you still have a vacuum advance on your distributor, you'll see the advance numbers go up on your handheld because the vacuum advance is applying some advance to it. Or maybe it won't show on your handle. I don't know, but the numbers will be higher at a low load and cruising. And you can even tune that in without a mechanical advance or without a vacuum advance. You can raise these in the low load areas where you just don't have much load on the engine. So you can add those in there, add some more advance in those areas. And the one last thing you could probably do is smooth the whole table. Yeah, let's see if we can smooth the whole table and see what it looks like. So we highlight the whole table, and we can look at it, see what it looks like in the graph. And it's a pretty steep table with some sharp edges here. So let's hit smooth and see what it does to our table. It rounds off our advance a little bit. Looking at our table here, I'm going to get rid of this graph here. Looking at our numbers, still going up to 34 like we like, and then coming down. But now there's a little smoother ramp instead of being a jagged up, over, over. We're a little smoother now than we were. So that looks cool. And I would take that. Let's try smoothing it one more time. We'll even take a look at the graph too when we do it, so we see what happens the next time we smooth it. All right, we're rounding it off just a little more. And we still go up to 34, but we're not making 34 until all the way at 4,000. Now that's too high an RPM. I want my advance in much lower. So I wouldn't smooth it more than once using the smooth selection. I would have to back this all up. Unfortunately, they don't have an undo on this, so I just have to go back over and reset the whole table. But that's what the smoothing does. It just blends everything in. And unfortunately for us, it moved the maximum advance up a long ways in our RPM table. So we don't want that to happen. So I'm going to go back, reset this whole table, save it, and then download it to the ECU. So we can use that by just, we've done this table. Now we can import just this page, or we can import our whole tune, which I believe is the down arrow. And that's what I would do. I'd do the whole tune in, because remember we changed back here at the configuration item. We changed this to 2D table as well. So at least do 2 different pages. Put this one in and put your timing in. Now you've got these other timing tables over here. Startup base timing, idle base timing, follow base timing. Shouldn't have to mess with these too much. Startup base should be right around 15, 14. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit all over the place because of how we smooth the table. Idle base timing should be about 15. And there it is. Changes a little bit with RPM and ignition temperature, or engine coolant temperature. That's fine. Yeah, everything here looks good. This is right in the 14, 15 range. And follow base timing, not really sure what it is, but I believe it's the percentage or RPM changes that it can use to make sure and try to land where it's supposed to be. That's all I know about that one. But this is the only one you really need to worry about initially. Get her done, make your timing, don't hurt your engine, and get out and drive. Hey, I just want to make sure that everybody realizes that the timing table I just built is for this motor and not your motor. And it's a very simple, basic timing table. There's a lot of variables that go into it. And the best way to tune it, if you ain't got a dyno, is to take this thing out on the road with your computer plugged into it, sitting in a passenger seat while your buddy is driving, or your wife, or whoever you got, and take it through the RPMs, and does it ping, does it pull well, adjust your timing on the fly out there. If it starts to ping or rattle even a little bit, you've got too much, back it off. But you can really optimize it out there on the road. Without a dyno, that's the only way you're going to do it. You're going to find where you get the best mileage, where you get the best power, where your acceleration is the best, and where it's too much. You're going to find that out too. You don't want to damage it, so start really low. And like I said, build your timing table for your motor. It'll run so much better. But hey, leave any comments you want. Tell me how wrong or right I am, or whether you like it or not. I'm open to all comments. So you guys have a great day, and once again, have a happy new year.